15 Things You Didn't Know About Vincent Van Gogh. Welcome to Alux.com, the place where future billionaires come to get inspired. Hello Aluxers, and welcome to another fact-filled video. The Alux channel and brand is dedicated to cluing you in on all of the finest things in life, from must-have cars to must-have jewelry to must-visit vacation resorts. Part of being a member of the elite is having an education and knowledge of the most important and significant individuals in culture through the years. And there is no doubt that one such individual is the legendary artist Vincent Van Gogh. Born on March 30th, 1853 in Zundert, Netherlands, Vincent was a Dutch post-impressionist painter who, though remaining undiscovered and unappreciated in his short lifetime, is now considered to be one of the most famous and influential artistic figures in the history of Western art. Perhaps one of the saddest figures in art history, Van Gogh took his own life at the age of 37 following many years of poverty and mental health problems. But we're here today to celebrate his genius with 15 things you didn't know about Vincent Van Gogh. Number 1. There were actually 4 Vincent Van Goghs. Though we can surely state that our Vincent van Gogh is a true one in a million, the truth is that the Dutch artist was named after an older brother who was tragically stillborn. This lost brother, in turn, named after their grandfather, also named Vincent van Gogh, and the name kept going down the family line when one of Vincent's brothers, Theo, fathered a son and gave him the family name that seemed to be so popular. Van Gogh is still a common Dutch surname to this day, and we can only imagine how big the temptation must be for families to honor the iconic artist by naming their boys Vincent. Number 2. He likely suffered from multiple mental illnesses. We are all familiar with Van Gogh as being a symbol of sadness and the tortured artist archetype, but his problems ran much deeper than just common depression. While studying his life and condition, modern psychiatrists have determined that Van Gogh was likely to have suffered from a large array of conditions including schizophrenia, syphilis, hypergraphia, manic depression, temporal lobe epilepsy, and Geschwind's syndrome. Many also believe that Van Gogh was autistic, as several family accounts have shown him to be an uncommunicative and clumsy child. It's just a shame that such a genius talent and mind had to exist in a period where little help was available for his ailments. Number 3. He didn't start painting until he was 27. The work of Van Gogh is an example to all of us who think it might be too late to follow their dreams. Though many art prodigies are famed for creating masterpieces in their childhoods, Van Gogh didn't put pencil or paint to paper until the age of 27, when he was thrown out of his family home after a series of failed and varied career attempts. Too poor to even afford a set of paints, he relied on a gift from his brother, Theo, the same brother who actually became responsible for helping Van Gogh survive financially over the course of the next decade. Number 4. He lived with and loved a prostitute. Van Gogh famously had deep and long-lasting crushes in his life, including on a widowed cousin and an upper-class woman named Eugenia, who was famously disinterested. The love of his life, however, was a Dutch prostitute named Sienne, whom he lived with for some time. Van Gogh not only took care of Sienne, but he also took care of her baby, helping to raise the child even though it was not his own. Sienne can be seen in many of Van Gogh's sketched portraits, but it is known that this love affair drove a wedge between Vincent and the rest of his family, and after some persuasion from his brother Theo, Vincent left Sienne in The Hague and moved to Drenthe, something many believe he always regretted. Number 5. His portrait of Dr Gachet sold for $82.5 million. Alongside sunflowers and Starry Night, Van Gogh's painted portrait of Dr. Gachet is undoubtedly the artist's most revered work. In his signature style, the oil-on-canvas painting depicts Dr. Paul Gauguin, the man who took care of Vincent in the final few months of his life. Interestingly, there are 2 authenticated versions of this portrait, both of which were painted in June 1890. In 1990, at an auction house in New York City, the first version of the portrait of Dr. Gachet was sold for a record price of $82.5 million. That's $151.2 million in today's money, making it the 13th most expensive piece of art ever sold at auction. Number 6. He was a prolific artist. During a career that lasted just over a decade, Van Gogh created approximately 2,100 pieces of art. This collection included 860 oil paintings and many, many sketch drawings. The bulk of his work was completed in France, where he spent much of his life, including the final 2 years. The paintings included landscapes, still lifes, self-portraits, and portraits of others, with some of his most notable unmentioned works being Sorrow and Bedroom in Aries. When considered mathematically, Van Gogh's 2,100 artworks over 10 years equates to 4 pieces per week. That is some pace compared to other revered artists like Da Vinci, for example. Number 7. The sunflowers made art history. Although by the prices most famous works of art fetch today, $62 million is lightweight when the painting Vase with 15 Sunflowers was sold in 1987. It signified a new direction in art sales and collecting. This was the highest price paid for a painting that was not an old master, tripling the previous record. Number 8. 4 of the top 30 most expensive paintings in history are by Van Gogh. The 4 paintings by Van Gogh with the highest prices are the portrait of Dr Gachet, sold for $82.5 million in 1990, the portrait of Joseph Roullin, sold for $58 million plus exchange of works in 1989, Irises for $53.9 million in 1987, and Portrait de l'artiste sans barbe for $71.5 million in 1998. The aforementioned Vase with 15 Sunflowers is number 46 on the list. Number 9. He sold only 1 painting during his lifetime. Perhaps the most bittersweet fact of all, it is believed that Van Gogh only sold a single painting during the course of his life. Painted in 1888, the oil painting Red Vineyards near Aries was exhibited at the annual exhibition of Les 30 in Brussels in 1890 and was purchased by Anna Bach, a fellow painter and art collector and friend of Van Gogh's, for the sum of 400 francs. That amount equates to roughly $1,000 in today's money, and the painting passed through the hands of a Russian collector named Sergei Shukin before coming to its final resting place in the Pushkin Museum of Fine Arts in Moscow. Number 10. His time in Paris turned him into a master. One viewpoint that is often espoused by critics is that Van Gogh was made into a true artistic master thanks to his 2-year period in Paris, France. Whilst Van Gogh's earlier paintings are rather somber in look and character, the works produced between 1886 and 1888, like the Sunflowers and Self-Portrait with a Bandaged Ear, are full of color and thick with excessive oils, almost a transition from sepia tones to glorious technicolor. Van Gogh was sharing an apartment with his brother Theo at the time, and perhaps this period of relative stability helped his artistic senses to flourish. You can learn all about Paris, the city that made Van Gogh, by watching our video. Just click on the right-hand corner when you're ready. Number 11. He was made famous by his sister-in-law. Though it is hard to contemplate today, the truth is that Van Gogh remained an unknown artist throughout the entire course of his life. It was not until after his death and after the death of his brother Theo that his widowed sister-in-law, Johanna, made it her mission to spread his works across galleries and exhibitions. Johanna inherited most of his pieces, and when she died, her son, aptly named Vincent, you'll remember, founded the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam in 1973, where most of his artwork still remains to this day. Number 12. He was the first selfie king. Though selfies are obviously seen as a recent phenomenon thanks to the invention of front-facing cell phone cameras, there is a strong case to regard Van Gogh as the original selfie king. In a period of 3 years during his decade-long art career, Van Gogh produced a total of 43 self-portraits. Some art critics have labeled this excessive number as an exercise in artistic vanity. Others have argued that due to Van Gogh's extreme poverty and dire financial situation, one of the subjects that he could always freely replicate without having to pay a model or buy props was himself. Due to his lack of interaction with people, finding even friends to pose for him would have been a huge challenge. Number 13. He painted some of his iconic works while in an asylum. Van Gogh had a significant mental breakdown in the winter of 1888, checking himself into the St. Paul de Massol asylum shortly afterwards. It was in this asylum that he painted some of his most famous works, most notably the amazing Starry Night. Though the painting has come to be regarded as one of Van Gogh's very best, the truth is that the artist himself was not pleased with the final result. Van Gogh considered Starry Night to be a complete failure, along with the rest of the pieces that he created in the asylum. We have to wonder whether his fragile mental state impeded his judgment at this time. Number 14. He likely had an affair with artist Paul Gauguin, and he may have been the one who cut off Van Gogh's ear. While the long-term object of Van Gogh's affection was Dutch prostitute Sienne, many believe that he also had a brief affair with painter Paul Gauguin. The two lived as roommates in the south of France, and Van Gogh himself described their bond as being electric. Though there was certainly affection between the two, they shared the type of relationship that very often ventured into violence, too. We have all heard different conflicting stories about the infamous act of Van Gogh cutting his own ear off. The story goes that the two artists became involved in a raging argument that culminated in Van Gogh slicing a portion of his own ear off, later giving it to a prostitute. However, some scholars believe that Gauguin, an accomplished fencer in his day, was actually responsible for the injury. Not wanting his roommate and sometime lover to go to jail, they argue that Van Gogh took the blame to avoid criminal charges. Number 15. There is a theory that Van Gogh was murdered. Though the historical consensus has always been that Van Gogh killed himself as a result of his poverty and his ailing mental health, there is doubt in some circles that the artist's fatal gunshot wounds were self-inflicted. History tells us that Van Gogh shot himself in the stomach in a field, then walked a mile back to the inn in which he was staying to die. However, some biographers believe that Van Gogh was actually shot by a young teenager who used to incessantly mock him. They argue that, given his mental state, Van Gogh might have seen this incident as a favor, and therefore chose to die from his injuries rather than seek help. This theory is supported by the fact that there was no gun ever found, nor were there painting supplies in the field that Van Gogh came from. Thank you, Aluxers, for joining us here today for this video. Hopefully we have given you an insight into the life and career of this very special artist. Do you have a favorite Van Gogh work of art? If so, which one? Let us know in the comments. And here's one final bonus fact as a thank you for sticking with us right to the end. Number 16. He has been immortalized in film and music. Van Gogh has been the subject of several different songs and movies over the years, some of the most notable being Don McLean's song Vincent. The 1954 film Lust for Life, starring Kirk Douglas as Van Gogh. The 1990 film Vincent and Theo, that focused on the relationship of the two brothers. And a particularly touching episode of Doctor Who in 2010, which saw Van Gogh being brought into the present day to be able to see how beloved his works are compared to the anonymity in which he died. Thank you for spending some time with us, Aluxers. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss another video. We also handpicked these videos, which we recommend you watch next. Thank you for being an Aluxer, and we'll see you back tomorrow.